Preetha, are you on the call today?
Yes.
Hi, Preetha. How are you?
Hi, Geraldine. How are you? I was just talking to Karen and her team right now, so apologies for being late.
That's okay. That's okay. So I just introed your organization to help us launch our inaugural internship program.
Yay.
And I'm going to turn the virtual mic to you, Preetha.
Yes, thank you so much. Great seeing everyone. And thank you, Geraldine. And so wanted to introduce Catherine Monroy, who is an AWT scholar, and she joined Slalom. We are doing the first of our kind of internship sort of idea and piloting, thanks to AWT and being able to connect us with Catherine. And Catherine, I know it's only been a week, but I would love for you to share how your experience has been so far. I know you and I have pinged on Teams, but Catherine comes to us from Chapman. Geraldine was kind enough to connect us, and Catherine was taking courses specific to certain areas of interest, and Catherine, you can talk a little bit about that. And so we've onboarded Catherine along with our permanent hires, FTEs at Slalom, and sort of she has a people manager is what we call them, career advisors, and she is starting to get onboarded on a team and sort of getting introduced to all leaders at Slalom in Orange County. It's been a really, such a great opportunity for us again, and a way to connect with students going through their college experience and making sure that we're doing everything we can to, give them experiences that say I didn't have growing up as a graduate of UCI. So yeah, excited. Catherine, I wanted to pass it on to you to kind of talk about how it's been so far and anything you'd like to share.
Thank you. It's been great. Like Preetha said, it's only been a week. So I had my new hire onboarding. I met tons of people this week. It's been a lot of overwhelming, just tons of information, but everyone's been super sweet, super nice. And my people manager, the person I'm shadowing for my internship, is super sweet and has been mentoring me pretty well so far. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
That is so awesome. Thank you, Catherine. And, I just want to add to this. We have coming up right behind us the opportunity for our 2021 scholars to place 2 of those interns as well, because we have other corporate sponsors that are kind of clamoring for this inaugural program, right? And so I want to thank Preetha for your openness and collaboration in terms of how are we growing, this type of program both inside of AWT and with our sponsors. So it was kind of a win-win, because when Preetha and I got together, Slalom didn't have a program. So we're kind of co-creating this intern program together. So thank you so much.
Definitely.
Really,
this was the burning platform. We have, Slalom is kind of local market based, and different offices at Slalom have different internship programs of different stages of maturity. But in Orange County, we only opened our Orange County office 5 years ago. So we are known as like a baby market, an infant sort of toddler market, if you will. So, and we've been kicking around this idea of an internship, but there's always so much going on, and just we wanted to support the students in our community. And so this all just aligned, and I really, thank you, Geraldine, for the idea and sort of being patient with us as we work through all of this. But all of it is really for students like Catherine to have the best possible experience and have launch pads in their career, in their life, where they can say, hey, these are the positive experiences that I accumulated that I'm going to take forth and do something bigger. And so that in of itself is sort of the reward coming out of this. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Great way of putting that. Thank you, Preetha. And thank you, Catherine, for really stepping up and being brave enough to go into an internship. I think you're only going into your 2nd year of university, correct?
Correct, yes.
So by the time she's done, she'll have some full-time position somewhere, because she'll be practiced in what it takes for, her career and education and how to apply it into the business in the real world. So good luck with that. And Catherine, we'll see you later. We'll stay connected. Thanks, Preetha. With that, I'd like to hand it back to Christy. Christy.
Okay, thank you, Geraldine. And so now I have the honor of sharing with you Amirah Raveneau Bey. She is our speaker for today, and we're really excited to have her here. So I met Amirah when she was at NerdWallet, and NerdWallet is an up-and-coming tech company that's doing some awesome things in the fintech business. And Amirah headed up the sales and marketing and various things at NerdWallet while they were just really getting started. And then she's had, you know, some really great experiences. So I'll let her share a little bit about that in a bit. But we're going to jump right in and find out from Amirah all about her app. So Amirah, why don't you let us know what's going on? You've launched an app. Tell us about it, and then we'll dig in, find out what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much, Christy, for having me here. Thank you, AWT, for having me here as well to share my story, and to just be another female woman to be able to tell what my journey, and hopefully, like I was used to be in the audience, to be able to share that and be an inspiration as well. So yes, right now I have been working for the last year during the pandemic, call me crazy because it started during the pandemic, to launch the Home Dispatch. It is a business, but it is an app that is here to really empower homeowners with tips, get them organized, and provide financial advice for their home. And more importantly, though, I was trying to solve for the mental load that so many homeowners have. I will not call out, I think this audience will understand, probably women, particularly if you're the person who's thinking about your home and all the details, not just the inspiration, but getting the things fixed. There's a mental load that comes with that. We have career, family, friends, and the last thing you want to do is check your gutters on a Saturday or install a smart home system. And so I wanted to be able to create something for homeowners that they can have at their fingertips, make it easier to track, manage the things, the people, the projects that you have for yourself with technology. And it's a little bit of a culmination of my career and obviously some personal pain that I felt for myself and from others. And that's the opportunity that I launched out today. So we've launched, actually, Christy, we've had our first group of beta users that started last week, where it's an invite only. So, we have people on our wait list and we're bringing people in because it's a beta, right? And a beta means it's not a glamorous Apple iPhone. It's a work in progress. And it's the opportunity for me to have real people on the app to give real feedback. And what I call our beta group is like, I'm building this for them because they're giving us the feedback. And so that's where we're at today.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about what led you to this point. You've been with some exciting companies, some startups, and some larger companies, and you've really achieved some significant success in your career. And then, but tell us where you've been and kind of what led you to this point.
Yeah. You're right. I'm very, very lucky. Similar, I think her name's Catherine, the intern. I interned, thought early on in my career, like, you're going to climb the corporate ladder. I'm going to do that. That's what's important to me. And so I worked for amazing companies. I worked for Citibank. I worked for Trulia, Zillow. No one knew who Trulia or Zillow were when I started. So pretty early on, worked at NerdWallet when we met. And most recently I worked at Open Door. And the core theme and the work that I did was really around like sales, service, operational teams, go to market. So a company has a product, the most simplest terms. They build a product and they said, how do we scale and make money? Like, how do we do that? And that can come through a team, it can come through partnerships. And that's kind of the work that I've always done. And while I ran sales and partnerships. And it's always been around financial or real estate products and their experiences to consumers. And, I climbed and I was struggling. Everyone's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful. I think I'm doing great. But there was this very important moment that happened probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I was on a plane to go fly out because I was traveling a bit for work. And I was fussing at my children around, do great at school, work hard. And, you're going to do all those things because whatever that passion that's in your heart, you're going to actually be able to apply all those things together. And I felt really good about my speech as a proud mom at the time, got on the plane. And then I just had this weird feeling where I was questioning, was I following my heart or my head? And in that moment, I didn't change overnight, but it was definitely like, I don't know, like I'm following my heart. And what does that look like? So I had to unpack what that looked like. And that really was as a young child, right? I really enjoyed looking at businesses or looking at an opportunity and figuring out how to make it better or figuring out how I can do it my own. And a part of me really, really, really wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur. He runs a music business. My grandmother did it. But I looked at that and was like, that is super scary. I saw the worry and the pain. I saw all of that. And I didn't really understand. I'm like, I'm totally going to get a job and work my way and figure out what's right for me there. But then, you get a little bit older, you get a little bit wiser, and your kids are great reflections for you. And I realized that actually my heart doesn't say this. My heart actually says I need to do something on my own. And I started to decide I was going to consult for a bit. I thought that would be the great idea. And essentially I was going to help companies again figure out how to make $1 million company. How are they going to drive revenue? And then a great opportunity, a friend of mine was actually walking with me one time and we saw a quote and it said, you can either help someone else build their dreams or you can go out and build your own. And she looked at it and I didn't even say anything. And she just said, that's you. Like, that's what you're doing. Like, you're helping these companies build their own dreams. And what about your own? And I was thrown back, of course, because again, it's like, it's your friends, it's your family that kind of point you back to yourself. And so I just started, seeing opportunities when they came, emails, and people say, well, there's this program here, or there was this Clio Capital firm. And I met Jamie, my co-founder, who similarly, we kept finding each other and we just ended up just having conversations about solving big problems, understanding that we wanted to do more. And, at a certain point, realizing, hey, we've been at a lot of great companies and seen what great leaders look like, and we think we can totally do this and probably maybe a little bit better, right? So why not? And that ended up being the tipping point. And then the next step was really around every time I read an email or I saw something through social media about an opportunity to see something, I jumped and said, the worst they can say is no. So I ended up going to Clio Capital, All Raise, On Deck, all these accelerator programs that was just to help me learn so that I can figure out what it was I doing.
So you went to some accelerators, but do they want you to have an idea in order to get in? Because you have to apply and be accepted, right?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. And there are different types. There's accelerators and there's incubators. And this is really helpful for people to understand, right? An incubator really takes an entrepreneur, flesh out their business idea. An accelerator will typically take you where you are and want to grow you fast into the next level of success with all the resources and support. And early on, I essentially was kind of more of an incubator when I met Jamie, because it was really about ideation and teaching you how do you ideate, teaching you how do you test things and grow fast. And that was where we ultimately decided that we were going to learn. But honestly, Christy, anytime I saw an opportunity for me to be with amazing people, listen to people that have done it before, I just applied. And it was like, if they take me, great, I will make the most out of it. And a lot of them were free because they're also leaning to see who are the new people coming out of this group and who may they want to start to partner with and kind of.
Okay, but wait a minute. So you quit your job?
I did. And I quit my job before all of this even came. I quit closer to when I knew I wasn't doing what my heart said. I didn't know the exact, but I knew that was not right.
But raising a family is not cheap, and you're stepping into this great unknown.
Yeah.
And with absolutely no idea if you're going to be able to make it. What was that thought process, even planning? I mean, you've got to have a runway, and what about your husband, and what about the kids, and
yeah,
how was that? I mean,
to be clear too, I did it right before the pandemic. So if you were to ask me today, would I make that the same decision, knowing we were going to pandemic? The answer is probably going to be no, right? Like, I could not have claimed that. But I did realize that I had enough confidence, because I started out consulting saying, honey, I love you. And let me get you a drink before I ask this question. And I did give him a drink. I'm like, so what if in the next year we try this, right? Give me a year, right? And I have to be honest, I love my husband. He's great. He is, he's not going to be the one that goes in and helps with the dishes. Like, that's just not his role, right? Like, I know that pretty early on, but he's always been really good at seeing me and seeing what I can do more. And it drives him crazy when I go to the preschool, right, with the kids, and I'm like, if they just added this here, they can probably make another $4,000 a month. Like, it drives him crazy. So he's seen glimmers of my brain throughout our 17 years. And he was like, listen, if this is really, really, really where you want, like your heart's there, let's do it for the year. Let's see where it goes. And that is actually, so I probably did not be as strategic with my partner. Of course, Jamie was amazing, right? Like, she had a master plan. She did this before her job, but I really was going through this also feeling of, plus 40. And I'm not 21, coming out of Stanford, who also felt this pressure of time, that is it my time? Because I can get a job at a major company, pretty confident I could get one, but I wasn't confident that I would have the energy, the excitement, and the drive to do what I need to do. So of course I had to figure out like a little bit of a plan, and I gave myself a horizon, and I'm over that year. But it's always been like, okay, if I get a good signal, I'm gonna keep going, keep going. And that is what kind of did it. And I have to just blame my kids. Like, I feel like such a hypocrite when I tell them that if you're really great at being art, that you should find your passion there, when I'm not doing it myself. It's really tough. It's really tough saying you're really, and your kids can see it. They're like, oh, mom, like, you run the PTA and you help us fundraise and you do this, and you're just not doing it for yourself. They can see.
No, that's interesting. And okay, I'm gonna pause for a minute because I want the audience to start putting in questions as they come up in your head, because we want to address the questions. Stepping out as an entrepreneur, and I know I've done it, it's scarier than one would think. And you've got so much to think about and all of that. And I'm going to touch on something, Amirah, and I told you I was going to do this. Okay, you're an African-American woman.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because we hear so much about, the inequity, just the lack of diversity, especially in tech companies, right? So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I'm a Moorish American. I call myself Moorish American, descendants of Moroccans, born in America woman, right? So when people see me, they're going to make whatever judgments they're going to make. But that's something that I've always had, right? People make judgments. I'm going to walk into a room. It's happened before. I remember a company, I was walking in a room, talking in a partnership, and, the gentlemen that my partners came in, and they immediately talked to the gentlemen that were next to me. And then the guy was like, that's my boss. I think you meant to talk to her, right? My name is Amirah Raveneau Bey. It's not a very common name. So people are going to make judgments before they even, get to know you at all. So I think like that's just something that I've always known. And I've known it since a child, right? You just don't wake up and this is the reality. So my mom would say early on, you need to work hard and be twice as good. Like, that's just our standard. Like, you have to work really hard. And I balance out with my sister, who would say, it is what it is, right? Like, I'm not trying to change the way the game is played of Monopoly. I'm not trying to change the rules. I'm trying to understand it and understand what can I do and how can I be? And I think anyone that's being successful in their work has to figure that piece out. I think there's just an extra piece of work that I have to deal with. But I guess it's really hard to distinguish or separate, because I've been doing that for a while, doing it, for a very long time, right? So it's when I walk in the room, when I made the transition from financial services into traditional banking, when no one in tech loved banking at the time, and I said, I'm going to go into tech, right? That was extremely hard to get, but it was being who I am, like laying it all on the table. I have the experience to prove who I am. And it also helps that good people as well to kind of help validate, because that helps as well. And just putting yourself out there, and know you're going to get some no's. Like, it is for sure, that is how it is. And to your point of being an entrepreneur, I would say it's probably the biggest personal growth that I've ever experienced, if I ever thought, because you are putting yourself out every single day and every single moment. And you've got to step back up and do it.
Okay, so African-American woman in business, in tech, did you ever feel like people were like blatantly discriminating?
Of course, I think that I've walked into rooms where, I mean, when you're used to being different, it's okay because you're used to being different, right? But I've definitely walked into rooms definitely where, particularly being in the Bay Area, right, where the pedigree of schools matter. I did not have that. The level of connection matters to people, and I didn't have that. And so, of course, I was questioned whether or not my idea was great, or I was pushed back on a decision that I thought was the right decision for the business. And it again, like I have to, like my sister has like said it, it's like, it is what it is. It's like, it is, okay. But that doesn't mean that that's everything. And I think that's the difference, which is you can't get discouraged because something bad has happened. You have to figure out, okay, how do I strategically do what I need to do to get to what I need to get to? And realize that I ultimately believe there are more good people than not.
It's almost like you put blinders on to the negative and you just focused on digging into yourself. And I mean, based on what I know about you, that it's like you don't see that negative. You don't see that uphill climb. You look at things so positively, and it's inspiring for one, but also, you know, I think especially as a woman in tech, you know, as a woman in business, we have challenges, but then you load on top of that, you know, being in tech, which requires, you know, in many cases, the pedigree and the connections.
Yeah. You know, I would say it's not that I don't see it. I don't want to, you know, definitely I do see it and I feel it, of course. But I do believe like what keeps me fired up is knowing that I'm not what others perceive me. Period. I know that I'm not, right? So that's step one. I think the second is representation matters, and people need to see others where they might have a shot. And I'm not the only one, right? I'm not the only founder. I'm not the only female founder, right? I'm not the only one in the room. I know that it's very, very little, particularly, but I do know that, and there was always been a first. There's always been some amazing people ahead of me that have done it, and I know that there is. And then I will say I have to give credit to allies, right? Allies have opened the door for me. You know, I had a manager I'll never forget in Nerdwallet, Bernie, who I always remember, and that was like a reflective moment for me, where when I first got hired, and he looked at me and he says, "You're gonna look at me and my background, and you're gonna say like, why is he my boss?" He said, "But I want to be clear, like I'm not the expert in this domain, you are, and I want us to both learn from each other." And it was just really refreshing. But that relationship as my manager and my leader, like we built trust, there was honesty, there was encouragement, and I learned so much from him. And so sometimes also when you're in the skin you're in, you if you're not careful, right, you can not see the allies that are in front of you because you're so focused on that. And so I've got to look for the people that are willing to help me. I have to look for the people that actually believe and see me for who I am, and not see with their eyes of who I am. And that really does help me.
Okay, so now you quit your job, you're on this entrepreneurial path. You go through all of these incubators and accelerators, and you apply, you get accepted, and you go through that, and you've learned a lot along the way. And then, but at what point did you firmly know what app you were going to develop? Because there's a discovery process. You knew you wanted to do something, but you didn't have like, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Talk to me about that discovery process, because these incubators and accelerators, you have a general idea, but how did you narrow it down?
Yeah, I mean, Jamie and I, when we first met, we literally did not have a clue. We were just like, she wanted to do more fun tech. I actually wanted to go more consumer because I was always interacting with consumers, and I was like, I want to do this. And then we were in the pandemic, right? So you're listening and observing the world. in a very interesting way. And so we heard a lot of people, you look at my background, like, oh, if you know anything about buying a home, ask Amirah, right? So that's where it originally started, about helping people buy homes. And we started a community. We started an Instagram. We still have it, at the Home Dispatch. It's morphed. And at the Home Dispatch, we like gave out free information, what we knew. We interviewed other people in the real estate space and financial space to talk to consumers. And we really just tried to listen to what consumers wanted. And we actually had a pivot, right? And we did that for a bit, and we thought, okay, we think we were getting closer to an idea, but then the problem shifted. It was like immediately we realized, like probably in the November, December, I remember saying, like, actually, like these people now that we've helped become homeowners, now that they're homeowners, they're asking even more questions. And I'm trying to figure out how to solve this. Like, I don't have my inspection report still. Like, how do I help them? And okay, is that hole on my roof really important? Like, that's a really great question. I don't know. And then it became like really just talking to people. And I personally, I went through a house fire. Actually, the first day, the weekend before I started my job in Nerval, I'll never forget it. The random story, long story, but a dishwasher caught on fire. And during that experience, our house was fine, but our kitchen was destroyed. We were displaced for 9 months, which is enough to have another child, but we didn't. And we had to get displaced. And that experience coming back to our home and the management of it, and I'm working on tech, and I'm like, how come I'm doing this all on paper and a pen? And like, how do I get support? And it felt very overwhelming. And I felt like if I'm struggling with this, others are. And so that experience, coupled with, you know, my partner Jamie had bought a house a year ago, and we're kind of talking about that challenges. And then people were talking to us about that. And that kind of ideation led us to where we got clearer and clearer. And so it's like, there's little wins that you get throughout the experience. You just ask a few more questions, and you talk to someone about their experience, and then you're like, huh, that's super interesting. And then those little like, keep like happening over and over. And you're like, there's something here. We need to figure this out. And I'm not a contractor. I'm not a real estate agent, right? Like, but neither were the founders of Uber, which is a great story to read, right? Like, people that just have problems with taxis decided to drive in a really hard space. And so that gave me inspiration. Like, well, I guess I don't need to know, but it's got to have pain, and it's got to be really hard, because if someone would figure it out beforehand, like, why would we be doing it? And I have to care about the problem. And absolutely I did.
So now let's talk about funding, because it's not cheap to get developers to develop a product unless you're doing it yourself, right? So what's that process like?
Yeah. So I'm going to share a secret that is, you know, most people don't even know. And I learned. So Jamie and I are non-technical founders, which is another layer of hard when you're building a tech company. And so in one of the programs I was in, there was a lot of like these founders, second-time founders, people that have done a lot of great things, talking about this no-code explosion. And no code essentially is, there's a whole new movement of technology being built where you don't need to know code. And companies are building off of it. So if we think about Shopify today, a lot of people might have heard of Shopify because it's a bigger name. It's so that anyone could be a store owner and have an easy website. Essentially, there's this revolution that's happening around code. That is, you don't have to have NoSQL to be able to build something. And so there's types called Glide, there's called Bubble, there's a lot of different tools out there that you can use. And so I actually walked away, we both were like, this is not gonna work, we need to find someone technical to join us. But with time, and you keep hearing the same thing, I was like, all right, let's figure out what is this thing that people are talking about. And it was actually a strategy that technical people were using to test their ideas without spending the time building code. So they would actually, engineers would go there that knew it, would build an hypothesis, because it takes a lot of time and energy, go there, test it with a few users, and see if people liked it. And it definitely lacks some features, but you test it out with users, and if they like it, then you have a much stronger case to go in for fundraising to say, I have this thing, but if you give me more money, I can make it even better. And so after hearing people talk about this thing and just having to learn, we're like, you know what? We're going to do it, because here's the reality. It costs a lot of money and time to code. offshore development, it's expensive. But here's what we can do. We can do something, and some of it is actually, you can do it on your own. Like Glide, you can use an Excel spreadsheet to do it. Super user-friendly. And so we were like, let's just do it. Let's test it out. And so we are actually on the pathway right now to go for fundraising. I'm actually in another program. I can't disclose it yet, but I'm in another program. We're actually in a path to fundraising to be able to go out and have all of our ducks in a row. Because again, like my mom said, you have to be twice as good. I can't go in with a paper napkin and an idea and get funded. That's just not going to happen. But what I can come in with is an idea, with users, with people, with all the things that I've done, and say, all right, write your check over, right? So that's part of our story of what we're doing. And that's why I'm very excited. We got the beta out, because it will give us real feedback that people can't, it's about money. People won't turn away when there's money to be made to be invested in.
That's really great. Okay, so that people know there's different stages or gates. There's self-funding, and then friends and family, right? And so you're doing the self-funding, friends and family, and then what comes next?
So there's two options people can do. One is angel investors, which is another big secret that's coming out, which I'm seeing a lot of talk on. There's a lot of people that have accumulated wealth, and they are like mini investors, right? They'll write $10,000 checks or $25,000 checks. And so there's a new group of investors that are coming out, which most people probably they know a little bit of, but they're opening it wide open. And again, I learned this again from one of the accelerator programs I was in, that they were kicking off an angel investor program. And they were training people how to be angel investors, as well as I know, I think it's women who, I can't remember, there's like a women funding group. They're starting to educate women who are in corporate America, who may have discretionary income, who want to invest in other entrepreneurs that are starting out. So there's this level of angel investors. And then the next you would go probably is the VC firms and the venture capital firms, right? Where some people might have heard some of those names, Floodgate, Sequoia, and others. They are the ones that will invest much bigger checks, obviously with some return, who back some of the major companies that a lot of us all know.
So when you do that, when you get funding, are you giving away pieces of your company at the same time?
Absolutely. It's all an investment, right? Everyone wants to win, right? And if they believe in you, if they believe in what you're trying to do, they will invest a little bit of money in hopes that you become the big thing. And like other things we see, right? It's a way for them to bet on what they believe is a big return.
So how does it feel to have your baby and then give pieces away here and there? Do you, because ultimately what, I mean, we've most of us have watched Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And if you've given away too much, then certain investors won't play, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, there's a lot of factors. I think it's partly it's your baby, partly it's the market that tells you what's happening. Right now, there's a lot of funding going into fintech, right? So that actually plays in the hands of founders really well, because there's a lot of cash out there. But I ultimately think about this, right? It's kind of like, I'm going to use dieting because, I've done it a time or two, right? When you decide to work out and diet by yourself, like you can sometimes go really far, but when you do it in a group, you can go a lot faster. And so I think about it the same way, which is that we will be much slower in growing and be able to turn out and do this business if we do it by ourselves. But if we actually think about a piece of investment, we might grow faster and make more money with the resources that you can acquire. Because a lot of the angels, and particularly the VCs, it's not just about the money. It also is an opportunity for them to leverage and partner with you. So imagine if, a dream, I'm trying to think of a dream company, right? Like if one investor decides that they want to invest with me, well, they actually know the CEOs of like 100 others. And if I want to get a conversation in or put in, or they feel like, we're in that relationship, they'll put you in connection, because again, they ultimately want all of their portfolio to win. And so that's a part of how you think about it. It's really about how fast can I grow? And here's the reality. There's no new ideas. It's who can do it the fastest and execute the best. And so the faster you do that, and the faster the investors see that, then they can bet more on you, because they know that someone's going to win in the space, right? There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's many others that didn't make it. everyone knew that there was going to be a winner. The question is who was going to be the winner. And so that's where the investors can help.
No, that's great. Okay, so now you don't have these forced timelines. You have kind of self-imposed timelines, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And say your kids have, you know, their activities and there's likely a family fire that you have to fight and all of these things. How do you stay motivated, focused, driven, and forging forward?
Well, the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you do control your time. The beauty of being an entrepreneur is you think about your business probably a lot. Even when you're quote unquote off. I will say that was a huge shift. I thought a lot about work beforehand. I used to bring it with me on vacation. It's even worse when you're an entrepreneur because there's so much of you that's out there. But I would say, right, it's about, I have to keep in constant, like, this is bigger than me, right? This is about me making a positive contribution to society. So how do I stay motivated? It is about my children are a huge motivator for me. I want to be a better role model for them. Quite frankly, the pandemic has helped me be a better mom because I can, I don't have to commute. So I can get up a little early, do this like I did this morning, ran my son to a basketball camp. I'm back. And then I'm going to do my daughter in an hour or two, but I've got a meeting until 7:30 tonight. So that's just the way it is. So you have a little bit more flexibility to do the things you need to do, but you do just end up working a lot more because you're creatively thinking. And I will say entrepreneurship to me is really like a great artist, you know, the writer and the author who I'm sure no one ever clocked, you know, Hemingway's hours when he wrote that book, but it's very, very similar in the fact that it's a burst of inspiration because it's coming from a different place. And so you think and do that very differently. And it's not about time. It's about the effort and the output of what you want to do.
So there's a question that Julia asked. How difficult was it to find the right partner for your venture? Because you never know. I mean, you guys didn't know each other before. You don't really know people. And this is huge. You're like effectively married.
We are married. Jamie, so I will say, I think of it like dating. And actually, we're still trying to find someone technical to potentially partner. I tell my girlfriends, I'm like, I'm going out dating tonight, right? It's very easy to get excited about a problem together. It's very easy to talk about how you're going to do it. It's not easy to talk about, is it okay if I eat my lunch while we're in a meeting together, right? And we worked with different people throughout, and it's about fit. But it really is like dating. So you have to find people, obviously, that check off the box for competence and can bring all the skills, but that you have similar values, that you have similar ideas of like what growth looks like. And you also have the courage to say like, I don't think you should be doing this, right? Or we need to reprioritize. And Jamie and I got very lucky because we just kind of dated for a bit on topics, and that enabled us. You know, she was a first-time mom and like going through that, and I had a lot of like feelings around that and wanting to be supportive of her. And she also has been amazing for me. She's been pushing me on my rockers a bit about doing some writing because there's stuff that I can share that can help. And I will say, like, she is like just like, you know, a good friend. And she's like, so we're talking about this week's, you know, goals for this week. I know we didn't cover that last week, so let's make sure we add that on this week, like that gentle nudge that I need. I'm like, all right, you're right, I got to do this. So you got to be able to build that trust and that open dialogue and communication. It's not easy, but you know, if anyone's dated someone that they liked just even a little, it's not that easy. You just got to keep kissing a bunch of frogs sometimes.
So you met during an accelerator, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But at the time, were you shopping for a partner?
At the time, I thought I was going to get help on my consulting business, but in the accelerator, when you have programs, we keep running into the same sessions. We kept running in, and she would say something, and I would go, "Oh, that's really interesting what she said." Oh, and then we run again, and then I was like, they encourage meeting people, and so we started chatting, and we just started seeing the similar things, and yeah, we didn't get to that idea till much later. So we actually dated a lot earlier. We knew that we wanted to work together. I didn't even know clearly that I was going to do it by myself. And I quite frankly could not have. She knew very early on, like, I'm going to do this with someone and it's about finding the right person. And so just by us sharing who we were and what we wanted to do, that enabled us to figure out that, like, yeah, I like you.
Okay. Well, that's good. And I'm glad things are working out, because it doesn't always work out. And so good for you. Okay. So now you've gotten to a beta. Holy moly, congratulations. And now that you reflect, if you reflect on where you were stepping into this new world, what would you, what, if anything, would you have done differently?
Well, you know, again, I would have probably, I wish that I planned it more. I went to consulting feeling really confident around that, and then this shifted. So I would say that, but there's a few things. I said, one, lower my expectations, because some things just take time. I do really see it as like an artist or a creative. Like, you just can't make a #1 hit in 3 months. And I came back from a, you know, corporate background where it's like, OKRs, what are you going to accomplish in 3 months and how does it level up? And that rigor did not work in the inspirational phase, for sure. So lowering my expectations to give myself time. I would say 2, just talking to so many people with the problem, customers. Like, I've talked to over 300 people, right? Like, you will hear similarities. You will hear people that will say different things to you. And so that would be like, I would say to myself, like, we could have done more early on if we just kept talking. Like, it feels like it's a lot, but just keep talking. And the third, I would say, would be take breaks. So tech is focused on, it's a hustle, it's a grind. Those buzzwords live in, and I get it. But the reality is, when you're building and you're an entrepreneur, you actually do need that space of inspiration. You need to have a grind, do something, and take a moment to sit back, because that is actually when the aha moments come in. And that's how the pivot came in. The pivot came because we're doing. And luckily, the election came. No one wanted to talk about business. And so that slowed us down from doing stuff. And then the holidays hit. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have all these things to do. I was checking off my list, but it couldn't happen. And that's when the inspiration hit. That, wait a minute, if you sit back, like, we should be trying a different way. And that was, you know, part of the thing that I wish that I had built into our process before, was taking more breaks, taking more reflection time.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who might be contemplating launching off on their own, and with or without a solid idea, what suggestions do you have for them?
So I will say that if you decide to go on the adventure, I relate it a lot to, like, motherhood. Kind of similar. So stay with me here. When you tell someone you're going to have a baby or you're pregnant, right? They usually tell you the gory stuff. Oh my God, I had morning sickness, diapers, you're going to have no sleep. They rarely tell you about that glorious moment when you feel that flutter, or when you see the child for the first time, right? We tend to always shift to the hard stuff and not the good stuff. So I would say, like, remember that, right? Like, it's going to be hard, and I'm not comparing the two. It's definitely different, but it's very similar to me that sometimes the adventure looks more gorier than the good. And you have to remember that. But I say in, like, 3 steps, right? 1, you have to uncover your why. Like, why are you doing this? Because when you're going to have a bad moment, you need to know why you're doing this to get back up and do it. And where do you have conviction? And for me, I had to listen to my heart. I could not tell that to my child again without doing it. And so my heart said I needed to go out and forge this. And if I made another company, you know, drove, you know, 200% growth, it would, like, probably hurt me a little bit, because it's like, I could have done that for myself because I have all the skill sets to do it. Number 2, I would say you got to talk to other entrepreneurs. They are the most kindest people. They are very generous in general. And they kind of all understand, it's like, it's kind of lonely. And yet I want to help you from, like, having my mistake. And so it's an interesting dynamic when you walk in and meeting other entrepreneurs. They're usually very, very nice to tell you or give you resources. In fact, it could be overwhelming. It was for me at one point. I was like, how do I process all this? But they are great people to talk to. And I'm happy to be that person too. But talking. And number 3 is you got to keep your eyes open. To me, it's a little bit of paying attention to what's in front of you and seeing, okay, is there something interesting here? There's obviously technical pieces, right? You can read any article or blog that'll tell you the top 10 things you need to do is you need to have an idea and you need to create a prototype and you do all that stuff is really easy. What they don't tell you is that if you don't have an unburning why, if you're not talking to other people to learn from them and to go fast, and if you're not just paying attention or keep your eyes wide open, none of that stuff matters. And I think that is, to me, has been the biggest shift. When you're going to do in these adventures, it's kind of like you need the soft skills, not necessarily all the hard skills to do it.
You know, but what you talked about, you didn't talk about the funding part. And it's almost like that, you know, there's a lot of work before you even get to the funding part.
Yes, there is. Because again, I'm on that journey for funding, right? Like you cannot go to, you can't go to your parent and ask them for something and until you make sure your room is clean, right? And that's how I think about it. I can't go to them until I'm buttoned up and I know, and I've had some early conversations and I've had some people who will say, like, it's very clear and obvious, right? You know, you're a woman and you're over 40 and and you don't have a technical co-founder, like, what are you doing in front of me? And so again, you got to but I believe 100% that there's something here. I believe that if I was not who I was and I was technical co-founder, I would be invested in. So I believe in the idea. I already know that I can, drive go-to-market, which actually is the hardest part is product market fit. It's actually not the idea. So I believe deeply in what I'm doing. I do also know that the next time I come around and the next time I start opening up those conversations, the fact that I built a prototype and I don't know a word of code says something about me, right? And so I think there's that. And you also have to take advantage of keeping your eyes open right now. And because the market says they're investing in founders, I need to figure out who are the right people and get in front of them. So that's how I'm doing it.
So I have to say, I'm inspired and I'm in awe of you, Amirah. And I've always known you to be a rock star, and for you doing this, and you're always so composed and you're always so positive. I just want to say hats off to you. Hey, we have a few minutes. If there's any questions for Amirah, unmute yourself and ask a question. And because, I know people are interested. And so let me know. And I would love to talk to you again once you've gotten the funding and all of that.
That is going to be a journey and a story. I don't know how long, but absolutely. I'm in the midst of some stuff happening. So I'd love to do it. But yeah, love to answer questions. And I think I put in the chat, you can follow more about it on Instagram and that newsletter that Jamie's been bugging me with. I'm launching it soon. So
good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so go ahead. Question? Did I hear? Okay, so upcoming next month, we've got Joanna Bloor. Amirah, I think you know Joanna, don't you?
I do, from way back. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So she's going to be talking about personal branding. And then in August, we have Laura Hackney, who launched Annie Cannons. It's a technology helping survivors of human trafficking to learn coding skills and technology skills. And so we'll talk to both of those. And by the way, Amirah, Laura Hackney is not technical either. So, and she built a coding school. So that's okay. So if there's not any questions, we're about out of time. And Amirah, thank you so much. And for those of you on the call, what we want to do is, make sure that you know about AWT, and we're a nonprofit. So if you want to get involved and if you want to donate, hey, great. And we'll be able to announce our scholarship winners coming up soon. So thank you so much for joining. And let's see, any other questions? Thank you, Amirah. You are absolutely phenomenal. And I cannot wait to hear more about your success. And we'll make sure to share that with everyone.
Well, thank you, Christy. Thank you, AWT. I have to say, helping out interns matters. So as an intern, every little bit that you guys can do is amazing. So thank you so much. And I look forward to being a resource to everyone here.
And maybe you can hire an intern in the future when your company is bigger.
I would love to. That is definitely for sure. And particularly if we have some women out there.
Yeah. Yes, we certainly do. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.